Every generation looks for a new investing secret, a new formula, a new indicator, a new edge. Yet when you strip away the language, the personalities, and the eras, the greatest investors in history all converged on one rule, not as a slogan, but as a governing principle that shaped every decision they made. This rule is not about picking stocks. It is not about timing markets. It is not about intelligence, speed, or access. It is about how capital survives long enough to compound. What makes this rule powerful is not that it is unknown, but that it is consistently violated, even by professionals. The investors who followed it built fortunes across decades. The ones who ignored it often disappeared, regardless of brilliance. This video examines that rule through the actions, words, and results of the most successful investors of the last century, not as mythology, but as evidence. The one rule every great investor follows is this: never risk permanent loss of capital. This rule sounds obvious. It is not. Most investors interpret risk as volatility. Great investors define risk as irreversibility. The difference between a temporary decline and a permanent impairment is the difference between compounding and extinction. Once capital is destroyed beyond recovery, time cannot repair it. This framing appears repeatedly in the writings and decisions of the world's most successful investors, even when they use different language to describe it. No investor articulated this rule more clearly than Warren Buffett. In his 1993 Berkshire Hathaway shareholder letter, Buffett wrote that volatility is far from synonymous with risk. Instead, risk comes from not knowing what you are doing. This statement is often quoted casually, but its implications are profound. Buffett was rejecting modern portfolio theory's obsession with price fluctuation. He was asserting that knowledge, structure, and durability determine risk, not movement. From 1965 to 2023, Berkshire Hathaway compounded at approximately 19.8% annually, compared with about 10% for the S&P 500. This was achieved not by avoiding downturns, but by ensuring that downturns did not destroy the underlying economics of the businesses Berkshire owned. Buffett avoided leverage at the holding company level. He demanded strong balance sheets, durable competitive advantages, and predictable cash flows. When markets collapsed in 1974, 1987, 2000, and 2008, Berkshire survived intact and often emerged stronger. Buffett followed the rule not by being cautious, but by being structurally conservative where it mattered most. Buffett's longtime partner, Charlie Munger, expressed the same rule through a different lens. Munger argued that success comes less from being smart than from avoiding catastrophic error. Munger repeatedly stated that his primary goal was to avoid stupidity. By this, he meant eliminating leverage that removes time, incentives that encourage recklessness, and complexity that obscures reality. Munger's mental models were filters designed to identify situations where permanent loss was possible, even if short-term returns looked attractive. This explains why Berkshire avoided technology stocks for decades, ignored the dot-com bubble, and refused to chase trends it could not understand. For Munger, risk was not uncertainty. Risk was fragility. The logic behind the one rule is mathematical, not philosophical. A portfolio that declines 50% must gain 100% to recover. A decline of 70% requires a gain of over 230%. As losses deepen, recovery becomes exponentially harder. Great investors internalize this asymmetry. They do not seek to avoid all losses. They seek to avoid losses that break the math of recovery. This is why leverage is treated with suspicion. Leverage compresses time. It forces liquidation before recovery is possible. It converts volatility into permanence. Great investors preserve optionality. Optionality disappears when capital is impaired beyond repair. If this rule is so fundamental, why is it so frequently violated? Because the penalty for violating it is delayed. Excess risk is often rewarded in the short term. Leverage boosts returns. Concentration without understanding looks like confidence. Ignoring downside feels efficient. The punishment arrives later, when recovery is impossible. Markets do not punish risk-taking immediately. They punish fragility eventually. Great investors accept slower progress in exchange for endurance. Every great investor used different tools, different language, different strategies, but they all obeyed the same governing principle. They refused to risk permanent loss of capital. They accepted volatility. They endured underperformance. They tolerated criticism. But they never positioned themselves where one mistake, one cycle, or one shock could erase the future. The one rule every great investor follows is not glamorous. It does not promise quick riches. It does not trend. It simply keeps you in the game long enough for time to do what time does best. Compounding does not reward brilliance first. It rewards survival. That is the rule, and it has never changed.